Hello everyone, today we have a fireside chat with Jeremy Crawford and Chris Perkins about the new revised Player's Handbook. Also know that this is a check-in. We're in the middle of print reviews and we are just kind of checking in with the creative team about what the state of the book is and tease a little bit of stuff, but we will have a lot more videos to come very soon. So first off, you had a couple of announcements that happened at GaryCon. What were some of those announcements? You revealed some art that was really cool.
Yeah, we showed off a glorious piece of one of our class illustrations, the wizard. It's just emblematic of the fantastic art that we have all throughout all three books.
And as you said, right now we are looking at the printed out version of the revised Player's Handbook, making final tweaks, looking under the hood on a number of the spells, ensuring that everything is where it should be.
Stepping out words we don't need,
yes.
Putting in words we do.
Yes,
yeah.
It is coming along splendidly, and once we are done working through the Player's Handbook, then it's on to the Dungeon Master's Guide and then the Monster Manual.
Is there any point that it hits you that the revised core rulebooks are coming out? Is it like when the art starts coming in? Is it right now? Is it when the physical book is in your hands?
For me, I often don't really feel like the book is a real thing, despite by this point having worked on more books than I know the number of at this point. It often is only when I have the physical book in my hands do I actually feel like it's a real thing. But the printout reviews are sort of the closest I get to that feeling before the fully printed book comes out. And part of that for me is because when we're in the printout review phase, we're still doing so much work. And for me, it is still the thing I'm pouring my heart and soul into and not something I can take off my designer hat and put on my fan hat, and that's why I love getting the book itself, because then I get to just be a D&D fan and take in what's being offered.
Yeah, similarly, when I see the art next to the text for the first time, that's when it feels most real to me.
Yeah, when you start seeing the layout.
Yeah, the art helps sort of contextualize every page and sort of ground everything. And you get to see the interactions between the text and the art, which previously had only existed in your mind.
It's interesting that you said contextualize, because I don't know that I've ever seen D&D art before this give context to so many different things. Like we have spell art, for example.
Yeah.
You finally get to see some things.
In some cases, spells being cast by the spell's originator.
Yeah.
Like this is Tasha casting her spell.
This is Melf shooting the acid arrow.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's not a theoretical example. That's a real example in the book of Melf casting his own iconic spell. Bigby is there, Mordenkainen, Jalarzi, Yolande, and others. This is really the first of the Player's Handbooks that have been done, at least, the last few times, where the art has been developed so closely with the text, because we planned out what we were going to do with the art when we first kicked off the text work on the book. And normally in our process, our work on what the art is going to be often comes a bit later and is still very much an integrated process with the art and the text together communicating what the book has to offer. But this time, art and text started on the journey together, and that really comes through in the finished product, where you can tell, like when they were writing these words, they had that specific piece of art in mind, and that art is speaking directly to the text that is on the page.
It was important for these products particularly because these are the foundational books of our game.
Yeah.
And so they had to be, the outlines for them had to be incredibly detailed, because to get everything that everybody needs to play the game, and you only have a finite amount of space to do it. Every page, every spread has to be planned well in advance. So we were thinking about the number of pieces of art in every chapter, and where is the art going to appear in each chapter, and next to what sections is it going to be? And that informs what the content of the art will be. Or there are key sections of a book that simply must be illustrated to get a key point across or an idea across. In order to guarantee that the books would actually fit, we had to know that information really early on, even before we started pulling the books apart and putting them back together.
Part of this, too, is that we knew all three of these books were going to be bigger, and the pages in these books are in many ways like the most valuable pages in the D&D book. Because,
Yes.
again, these are the books that are the foundation for everything else. And so we made sure in that early planning that what was going to go in here was going to essentially earn its keep and really be delivering, new fun, or the fun you already experienced from the previous version, but now enhanced, and along with surprises, because as we've discussed before in these videos, all three books have new elements that we will be, I think, revealing in videos in the coming months.
Someone from the art team actually took a photo of the Player's Handbook with all the rest of the books, and you see how thick the Player's Handbook is.
Yes.
It's quite alarming to see it amongst the rest of the books all on a bookshelf. It doesn't hit home until you you see how weighty it is there. What is it like right now, this moment right now? You've got like the whole crew. Like, it's also like kind of lockdown. I'm surprised I've even gotten to talk to you this week.
So right now it is a cross-section of the RPG team going through every page of the Player's Handbook and, examining the words, looking at the art, looking at the layout. Again, making sure that everything is where it should be, discussing, all right, is this worded the best way it can be, in a particular place? Or considering, should we swap out the design of this spell for a slightly different version, that kind of thing. So right now it's a mix of making sure the layout of the book is just right, but it's also in the coming weeks, this is our final chance to make sure the text is delivering what we want it to deliver. Even though the core game is solid and compatible with the adventures people already have from the past 10 years, every page of the book is different from, the equivalent page of the 2014 Player's Handbook. And that's true for all three of the revised core rulebooks, that these are new books through and through.
There's a lot of UX improvements that have been baked into these books. There's been some reorganization of the books, so things just aren't in the same places that they used to be. The information's there, it's just presented differently.
There are also simply brand new things, whether those are new spells, new feats, new class features, new whole subclasses, new subsystems, but even new general rules guidance. So people are going to find, for instance, some guidance on illusions that wasn't there before.
Yeah.
People are going to, basic things like before, if you were a player and you wanted to know, well, how do I break an object? Well, in the past, you kind of had to follow a trail that led somewhere in the wilds of the Dungeon Master's Guide. Now a player can look right in their Player's Handbook in the rules glossary and find out, how can I shatter that mirror on the wall?
It's very clear that playtesting continued after UA and redesign continued, and there were a lot of improvements. Some of my favorite subclasses, I saw things, I'm like, okay, now this has like a two-pronged keystone moment that improved the subclass fantastically.
Well, and even some of the subclasses that migrated from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything into the new Player's Handbook, and some of those did not go out into the Unearthed Arcana process. Even those went through additional playtesting and development. So people are going to find that some of the subclasses that got picked up have also been improved in a number of ways. And in some cases even have new features, just like the subclasses did that went through the Unearthed Arcana process. And I think a few of those subclasses will even be a surprise, because we had, during the UA process, we had a subclass or two that didn't make it, like the Brawler.
The Brawler didn't make it, and I know the replacement.
Should I say what the replacement is?
We can try.
So the replacement in the fighter is the Psy Warrior.
Yeah.
And we decided that because Aberrant Sorcery had migrated into the Player's Handbook from Tasha's Cauldron, that it would be good to give the Psionic Sorcerer, along with the Great Old One Warlock, some more psionic friends. And so the Psy Warrior is now in the Player's Handbook, along with the Champion, the Eldritch Knight, and the Battle Master.
And if you like psychic powers, the soul knife is in there as well, right? From Tasha's?
Well, that's also a reveal, because we had not shared that as a part of the UA process. Yes, the soul knife from Tasha's Cauldron is also in the Player's Handbook.
Was there anything kind of surprising during playtest after UA that came up for you?
Nothing that was sort of a major surprise, but a lot of really great insights about just how certain things could work better, how certain things could be clearer. We've also been identifying more unexpected multi-class combinations, and in some cases making changes to prevent the undesirable combinations, but then in other cases protecting the combinations, because there are a number of multi-class combinations that are tons of fun, and we want to make sure they stay protected in the game. And usually when we look at things like that, we always have our eye on, one, is everything fun? That's one of course, our top priorities. And then we're also looking for, is anything here slowing down play too much, or is it overcomplicated or overpowered? And if we discover that it is one of those things, then we look at how can we alter it so that it no longer is that thing while still being a good time to use.
Yeah, I think one of the great things about this book is that it's opened the door to many more character concepts. If you have a particular character in mind to play, you have a better chance of being able to create that character with the options in this book than you may have had previously with any other D&D book.
Yeah, when you combine not only all of the subclasses, but also the many more feats, the new approach to backgrounds, then throw multi-classing into the mix.
Yeah.
You have so many ways to mix and match different character concepts.
Yeah, and promotion of a couple new species to the big time.
Yes.
To the big book. Yeah.
And also, the species art is amazing. It gives you a great example of every species.
One of the fun things about that, and Jeremy spearheaded this, was making sure that each section of the Player's Handbook, in terms of its art, was kind of delivering on a different promise, or highlighting what is interesting about what's going on in that chapter. The species art being a great example, where all of the illustrations of the species options available to player characters are done as these scenes involving multiple members in situations that you would probably find them very commonly.
Yeah.
Like the halflings are all sitting around a dinner table with each other. The Goliaths are doing, their thing, and the tieflings are doing their thing.
Yes, and the gnomes are definitely doing their thing.
The gnomes are definitely doing their thing, and it gives you an idea of sort of the undercurrent of what unites these wonderful adventurous folk.
What is the team like right now? Because is it fun seeing everyone during the print review right now?
It's great because during the printout review, not only are we very focused on finishing this thing we've been passionately working on for several years, but it's also an opportunity for us to confer with each other in person as we bring the books home. And so it's a chance for us to talk through, after, in some cases, many weeks of mostly working at home, talk through in person, all right, do we really mean it? Is this where we want to go next? And also, just like playing a D&D game in person, where you really get to see through a person's body language and their facial expression if something is delighting them, it's a chance for me always to see, is this thing in the book delighting people here at the table as we look at it? So to me, it's immensely valuable, almost as like the dungeon master of this particular book, to see how the players around the table are enjoying this particular game.
Yeah, I like to sit at the table and just listen to Jeremy chuckle once in a while, or he'll stumble upon a little bit of text that just, tickles his fancy. And it's such a delight to see that even among us who have read these pages multiple times and have rewritten pages multiple times, that they're still fun.
Yeah.
I know how tremendously busy you've been for like the last, 10 years, but 3 years also making this book. Do you get a moment to stop and smell the flowers, or like remind yourself this is actually happening? It's hard when you're working that hard.
I have no sense of smell.
You have no sense of smell. Is it the lightning?
It's something to do with that, yeah. I had a sense of smell, now it's gone, so I don't smell the flowers anymore. But to answer your question, no. It's just you move on to the next thing. At least I do.
Yeah. We are working so nonstop, it is actually difficult to pause. Yeah. But it's one reason why I love doing things like Acquisitions Incorporated, because like while Chris was at GaryCon, the only reason I wasn't there is because I was that same weekend, I was at PAX East and
running the clown show.
Yes. And running that game is actually one of my chances to just smell the flowers and just enjoy D&D. And I find that is almost always the way I get to smell the D&D flowers best is when I'm just DMing or playing it, and in a non-playtest context, because we do a lot, in our team, we do a lot of playtesting, but that's why for me it's so vital to then go off and just play D&D and DM it as a fan. And I think I've mentioned before in conversations with you and videos, it's one of the reasons why when I'm running my home game, probably my only house rule is that we play test nothing in my home game. That we just play the D&D that everyone else is playing, not whatever we're currently working on in our laboratory here at work. And so that we can just enjoy this game we love so much, because at the end of the day, even though this is our profession, we are at heart just lifelong D&D fans.
Was there anything surprising about GaryCon? Like you get to interact with fans, you get a moment to talk to fans.
For me, it was a pleasure to be at such a wonderfully run show, and one that had a very intimate atmosphere where, you had no trouble running into the people you wanted to run into, and you ran into a bunch of other people you never thought you would, but you're delighted having done so. And it's a lovely facility in a town steeped in D&D's history. So going back to that, you could feel it. It's palpable, that history. It pervades that con in particular because it's named after one of D&D's grandfathers. You see D&D in all of its forms, from earliest day D&D being played to 5th edition. And it's just a reminder to me that D&D has this amazing legacy, which of course now we get to celebrate in its 50th year. But there's a power to this game and its ability to bring people together and make people happy and to build lifelong friendships. And you see it on display at GaryCon and other shows like it. And so being a part of that legacy, being one of the people who is fortunate enough to be a steward of Dungeons & Dragons for a time, I carry that weight around with me at the show and beyond. And it's like, this is important to so many people. It's very important that we be faithful stewards of the brand and of the game, and to make sure that we're setting it up for its next 50 years.
The next time you see us, we are going to be talking in depth about the Player's Handbook. A whole bunch. for hours on end.